It's the weekend and you have financial questions that need answering. That can only mean one thing. It's time for Jill on Money, the show that takes the mystery out of your finances. Here's your host, Jill Schlesinger.
Welcome, welcome. This is the Jill on Money show, and we are broadcasting live from the Capital One studios. Capital One, what's in your wallet? I like saying it that way, wallet. It might be more than you think. You know, you guys are such great inspiration that I think, I remember it was the last week or the week before we got a call from somebody who was definitely freaked out about all the weird stuff in the news cycle. And I used that call as a prompt to write an article called Preparing for Armageddon. Mark, that was a scary image that you put up there. Where'd you get that from? Oh, he got it from the World Wide Web created by Al Gore. The amazing thing is we've been getting a lot of emails about this. I think this has to do with the idea that people are just kind of nervous about the news cycle because it doesn't make any rational sense to consider that we're all worried, but the economy's still growing. And the stock market is, still kind of chugging along within 1-2% of each index, probably of its all-time high. But still, if you want to prepare for Armageddon, I'm going to help you. Go check it out. It's on the website, jillonmoney.com. Just click on the read button. It may not be the first, it might be the second article, but I really had a lot of fun. So thank you always for providing great inspiration. By the way, while you're on the website, sign up for our free weekly newsletter. It's free. Get all the cool stuff that we do all week long. Mark finds great stuff. I find great stuff. We collaborate. Mostly it's him because he does most of the work here. But, I talk good, right? All right. If you have a financial question, we'd love to hear from you. If you're on the website, just click the contact button. It's in the upper right-hand corner. If you are listening to us and just have a notion, you want to pull over to the side of the road and send an email, ask Jill at jillonmoney.com. That's ask Jill at jillonmoney.com. That is what Carolyn did. Carolyn is on the line from Minnesota. Hello, Carolyn. How can I help you out today?
This is actually Paul. I'm Carolyn's husband.
Hold on. What did you guys bait and switch me?
Well, not really, but Carolyn got a little choked up there, so I had to recover for her.
Oh, okay. I hope she's okay.
She's fine.
All right, Paul, give us the deal. What's going on?
Well, so we're both around the age of 65, and we're looking at our retirement funds, and we've been evaluating whether we should, because all of our money right now is in the market, which probably, is maybe not a good thing.
Hold on. When you say all of our money is in the market, you mean all of the money that's invested is in the stock market? There's no bonds, there's no cash, it's all stocks?
Yeah. Well, it's a mix. We're in these different funds.
Okay.
Right? But it's and hopefully our current advisor is doing a good job at balancing that. Okay.
Yep.
So and we do trust it.
Okay.
But we're looking at the possibility of doing an annuity to try and extend, our money into the future a little bit. And we don't, there's so much pros and cons, and we don't know. Is there another alternative if we don't do this annuity thing?
Okay.
What are some alternatives that might be better for our situation?
Okay. So, Paul, you're both 65-ish. Are you collecting Social Security right now?
Yes.
Okay. And what's the total amount of Social Security that you collect in a month?
I think it's about $3,500 to $4,000.
Okay, great. Do either or both of you have a pension income?
Yes.
Yes, my wife does.
And how much is that?
$3,000.
About $3,000.
Okay. So we've got $3,500 to $4,000 in combined Social Security. There is pension of $3,000. What are there any other streams of income? For example, is there any rental property, anything like that, or is that it for the income side?
No, I'm still actually working. I have my own company, and so I, supplement that with my income.
And how much do you earn approximately, Paul?
Well, I would say about $3,000 a month.
Okay. Now, ask your wife this because I bet she knows the answer right off the top of her head. You have all this income. How much does it cost you to live your lives every month? What's your monthly nut, would you guess?
About 8,000.
Okay, great. See, I knew she'd know that. Okay, so I'll put her on the phone in a second as long as she gets that. Okay, now, so right now, even if we get Social Security at $3,500, I'll use your low end, right? You've got $9,500 of taxable income. Your monthly nut is $8,000. Okay, so far, so good. We like that. Even after taxes, you're basically meeting your monthly nut, which is fantastic. Now, your house, is it paid for? Do you have a mortgage?
No, we have a mortgage.
How much is the house worth?
About 700,000, 650, something like that. 670.
How much is the mortgage outstanding on it?
432.
Yeah.
Did she say 482? I love her. She knows that number.
432.
Oh, 432. Okay, that she's got that number right off the top of her head. We're putting her on the phone in a second. Don't worry. You're almost off the hook, Paul. Now, how much money do you have in non-retirement assets? Meaning not an IRA, not a 403B. What's outside of retirement?
About 150,000.
Okay, got it. That's great. Now, let's break down. What about retirement assets? How much money in retirement assets?
Probably about 600,000.
Okay, great. And my last question to you before we go to the break, and then your wife makes her star debut on the radio, because I know that's what we're going to do next,
Right.
is this. So the question around that you're asking about annuities, I presume that the advisor is suggesting money from your retirement assets. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. I said that was the last question, but I have one last one. How much longer do you think you'll be working, Paul?
Well, 5 more years, I think.
Great. That's perfect.
I'd like to.
Great. That's fantastic. Okay. Now, gather your thoughts. Tell your wife she's going to come back. We're going to do a quick break, and then Carolyn will take over for Paul now that we've made him do all the prep work. And then we're going to talk to Carolyn. And what we're going to try to figure out is that this couple in their 60s, whether or not adding an annuity as an investment makes sense for them. So remember, this is what we got. We got income. This is how you do retirement plans, guys. We look at the money coming in. We look at what you need. We look at your assets. And then we make a decision what you need to do next with your money. So stay tuned. We are finally going to hear from the fantastic Carolyn from Minnesota. It's Jill on Money. And if you have a financial question, you want to walk through some of these steps with us, send us an email. Ask Jill at jillonmoney.com. We'll be right back.
(401ks, IRAs, refinancing, she covers it all. Back to Jill on Money with Jill Schlesinger.
You're back. It's Jill on Money. And if you've got a financial question, we would love to hear from you. All you have to do, so easy, send us an email. Ask Jill at jillonmoney.com. That is what Carolyn and her husband Paul did. Now, we started the call with Paul because evidently Carolyn had, a little bit of a choking situation, a little stage fright. But she's ready to be back on the air with us. I'm very excited about this. Let's go through this. If you're just joining us, Carolyn and Paul, mid-60s, they got a house, they got a mortgage. She's retired. He's working part-time. they are really looking beautiful in terms of the amount of income that's coming in, which is somewhere around 9,500, maybe 10 grand. That's what's coming in pre-tax. And their monthly expenses are $8,000. So lining up beautifully. They've got a bunch of money saved in addition to that. There are retirement assets of $600,000. There's non-retirement assets of $150,000. This is just a great, fantastic scenario that we've got. Okay, so do we have Carolyn on the line now?
Yes, we do, Jill.
Thank goodness, the woman of the house taking over. Okay, did I get everything right so far about the situation?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, you did. The person that's trying to sell us the annuity made it sound like we were going to run out of money, and I guess that makes me a little nervous. And we've had to take money out to pay our taxes. So.
Right. But, I mean, you're not taking that much money out. I mean, I presume that, just given what you're telling me, you don't have, to me, it doesn't seem like you're in a precarious situation in any way, shape, or form, because when you say taking money out, are you taking money out of the $150,000 pot or the $600,000 pot?
That I'm not sure. We're out of the $150,000 pot,
Okay.
I'm assuming.
Okay, good. Yeah, because I would say don't pull money out of that retirement account as well.
Right.
Okay, so and are there any other assets that we're missing just in terms of what we just went through? Because you said your husband said you had about $600,000 in retirement assets, about $150,000 in non-retirement assets. Anything else that we're missing?
No, that's pretty good. Yep.
Okay, great. So here's the thing.
Mm-hmm.
The first and foremost, I don't think you have a problem at all. In fact, your husband, the fact that he's going to continue working, even if you have to pull some money out of the account, I can't imagine it's all that much money. Maybe it's for property taxes, or maybe is it? Would you guess that it's at less than $10,000 a year?
And actually this time it was 10 grand. Yeah.
Okay, so 10-ish works. Okay, good.
Yeah.
So what's interesting about that is I look at your situation. Let's just say that, you need to pull 10 grand out for the next 5 years. And you now, instead of having 150,000, you have 100,000 in that non-qualified account. However, the retirement assets are going to keep growing. And the Social Security is not going away. The pension's not going away. The one thing that is going away is your husband's part-time work, that $3,000 a month. So the question is that in 5 years, what would have to happen about that $3,000 a month? Where would we get that money? Well, I would suggest that you will have to start taking required distributions from any accounts that haven't been taxed. So of the $600,000, are those all pre-tax accounts, or were some of that Roth money?
We have a very small Roth IRA that just got like $20,000 in it.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. So most of it is going to be subject to required minimum distributions, which you'll take. You wait till you're 70 and a half, you'll take them. And I think that that's probably going to be fine to cover your needs. The thing that's interesting is if I look at the $600,000, let's just pretend, let's wind the clock ahead 5 years, okay? In 5 years, let's pretend that you're non-qualified, your non-retirement assets, you've got 100 grand in there. And then let's also presume that because you didn't touch the 600,000 at all, that grew to, I'm going to say, in 5 years, let's say it's 700,000. Maybe the market goes down, it goes up, but let's say you got 700,000. So now, if I had 700, because I really don't want to think about that 100,000 in your non-retirement assets. So if I look at the 700,000 at that time and I say, okay, that's essentially going to give you $2,000 a month of extra money. It's not the 3,000, but it's 2,000 and it's passive. And I just don't see, you could even probably take a little bit more. I don't think you're going to run out of money. If you're really worried about running out of money, the idea might be to say, all right, well, are we going to stay in this house forever? I don't know if you are or you're not. Let's say that you are. Okay. Well, maybe, as time marches on, you might say to yourself, well, number one, that mortgage will eventually go away and then we won't need all that money for expenses. Or number two, if the house gets paid off or something happens in your life, then you could potentially say, I could take a reverse mortgage. We could stay in the house. I don't see how the annuity solves the problem. Essentially, what the annuity does is it allows the advisor to make a big commission.
Yeah.
And it will give you a stream of income, but it's going to add to the cost of investing. And right now, anything that adds to your cost means that you'll have less money at the end of the day. So I don't see why you need an annuity. All I think we need to do is have a real good, long, hard look at the money, that $600,000 that's invested right now, and make sure that it's basically invested in a balanced way. Not too much in the stock market, little bit more in the bond market, and be prepared. And say to him, by the way, hey, I don't want to touch this money. I want this to be growing. And then in 5 years, when we're ready to take our required minimum distributions, we'll use that. Maybe we'll pull a little more out, but let's see where we are in 5 years. I would definitely avoid the annuity.
Okay, so I don't need to worry so much. I think they sold it on the premise that the stock market's going to crash and gloom and doom. So I shouldn't, as long as I've got a balanced account, you're saying.
I don't think you have to worry about that. I get that it's scary. First of all, let's just pretend that they're so smart that they know that the stock market's going to crash, right?
Yeah.
Let's say that.
Yeah.
I'm not sure the annuity protects you from that, because with the annuity, what they're going to tell you is, oh, well, it's going to have some money in the stock market, but some money's not going to be in the stock market, or we're going to protect you against loss. But what they always leave out is all those features cost money. So in your case, if you just don't go crazy on the risk in your portfolio, and you remember, it's a long life, my friends.
Yeah.
You guys are going to hopefully live for 30 more years. I don't see why we would want to remove money from those retirement accounts, lose access to that money, put it in an annuity that's larded up with a lot of fees, and then have you at the, maybe even 10 or 15 years from now saying, why'd I do that? I just don't think that's worth it for you. And one last thing before I let you go. I think that your husband started by telling us, we like this guy, we trust this guy. I'm less forgiving. So what I would love for you to do is, if you wouldn't mind, could you follow up with me and just send me a copy of how that $600,000 worth of retirement assets is invested? I would be very interested to take a look at that. I want to make sure you don't have too much risk, but I also would be interested in understanding how this advisor is managing the money, how this advisor is charging you, and to determine whether, one other way to make your whole financial life a lot better in retirement is to reduce your fees. And if there is a way to reduce the fees and all that money just flows right down to you, don't forget, on $600,000, chances are there's at least 1% of fees that's popped in there. That's $6,000 a year that's going to an investment company and not to you. And at a time where you're getting ready to think about retirement, then heck, I'd like to have that $6,000. Thank you very much. So if you wouldn't mind, Carolyn and Paul, I like this as our first joint phone call. Send us a snapshot of how the money's invested, and we'd like to help you out a little bit more. In the meantime, thanks again for calling. I wish you the best of luck. No annuity, no annuity, no annuity. Okay. It's Jill on Money, and we would love to have you give us a holler. You can just send us an email, askjill@jillonmoney.com. And don't forget, you can always go to the website, jillonmoney.com, and there, buy my book, The Dumb Things Smart People Do With Their Money, 13 Ways to Right Your Financial Wrongs. We'll be right back.
.401ks, IRAs, refinancing, she covers it all. Back to Jill on Money with Jill Schlesinger.
You're back. It's Jill on Money. Woo! I'm a little bit punchy right now because of how much I worked in the last 24 hours, but I'm so excited to be with you. And you know what? It's good when I'm in a good mood. Just ask Mark. Life is better. If you've got a financial question, give us a holler. Our email address is askjill@jillonmoney.com. That's easy, right? You can always go to our website, jillonmoney.com, and there, if you're poking around after you've bookmarked it and made it a favorite website that you like to check out, you can always click the contact button. It is in the top right-hand corner. Easy, right? All right, let's do some emails. So let's see. We had some follow-ups, so I just want to see here. We have Carla, who wrote about that her husband has a job that offers no 401k. He's maxing out his Roth, and she wanted to know if there are other options. And she was very excellent because she provided some additional details. She works for a company that offers a Roth 401k. She contributes 14% with a 7% match. That's 25% of my variable pay. It comes out to about $12,400 a year of total Roth contributions and $5,500 employer pre-tax. There's also a 10% salary pre-tax profit sharing. That's nice. That's some serious, all of a sudden I went from, you're only putting $5,500 a year away to, look at this, 12, 13, 18, about 25 grand a year is going away. That's awesome. They max out their health spending, HSAs, healthcare spending accounts, and the husband's Roth IRA. She also has a Roth IRA. He works for a small company. He isn't sure if they're going to get a retirement plan in the near future. He also has some income as a real estate agent, and we're unsure whether he could contribute to a self-employed 401k. I'm thinking about trying to max out my Roth 401k, my Roth IRA, and my husband's Roth IRA, and if we have extra to invest, just invest it in a non-retirement account. This is probably going to be about $200 a month. It's the simple option. What do you think? We're also putting $2,000 a year in our son's 529 plan. We plan to do the same for the next child. Do you recommend the Ohio plan over the Fidelity 529 plan? Okay. So I love the idea of maxing everything out. I think that really does work perfectly for you. And for the extra $200, I'm wondering whether it might make sense for you to actually use the 529 for that, because you're not putting that much away into your 529, $2,000 a year. So you could just put a little more into the 529. I'm hesitant to go anywhere but that Ohio 529, by the way, because your contributions, including rollover contributions, allow you a $4,000 per beneficiary per year state income tax deduction. How about that? So this might be something, I don't know if you might want to roll what you have elsewhere into that plan, but that could give you a real benefit by using the Ohio plan. I like that kind of savings. That's a good deal. So I would absolutely check that out. If you don't want to put more money into the college account, then sure, just move it into a general investment account. That makes sense to me. I think that works perfectly well. Okay? So go for it. Do it. Like it. Okay. This is from Mark, not my Mark, a different Mark. My question is about employee insurance. I opted out of using my company's insurance because it cost too much. Then I got insurance through an outside company. My company would normally put $350 per month towards my insurance. So should that money go into an escrow account or added to my paycheck minus taxes? What's your thought on this? Oh, my gosh. I mean, that's a company decision. I don't know if you actually can do that. I really don't. So I would be careful is what I would do. I'd be very careful about that. You can talk to your bosses, but, you've opted out. They have a benefit. They're under no particular obligation to give that to you unless they actually just want to. So good luck. Okay, Alex is writing from Toronto. I enjoyed reading your book. I know my question may fly smack into your dumb thing number 5, but we've been hearing so many different opinions about buying a home. My wife and I are both 31. She's an allergist. I'm a pediatrician. She started working 2 years ago and is incorporated. She takes home about 350,000 Canadian dollars gross. But she's got 25 to 30% clinic overhead. I started working a year ago, and my earnings are about 400 grand. Mark, let's do that calculation because Canadian loonies are a little smaller. So look at 750 grand Canadian to U.S., and then I'll keep going. They've got no debt. They've got about 85 grand in savings, and 400,000 in a retirement savings, 400,000 in a down payment fund. They want to live in Toronto. Now, not sure whether the housing market is going to pop because of all the foreign investors. We've been approved for a mortgage of, get this, $2 million. We want to buy a house in the $1.5 million to $1.75 million range. Lots of calculators. And so with so many other things, it all recommends buying. For the long term, I do see us in Toronto. I love the city. Okay, so fine. Do it. I think that's fine. I mean, here's the thing. I think that how much is that? So they're making 500 grand in U.S. dollars. They're looking to buy like $1 million. Yeah, you could do it. I don't think that's a problem. I really don't. I think you make a lot of money, and I think that buying is. I think that if you know you want to be in a place, you've already been approved, you don't let your purchase price drift up on you, and then all of a sudden it's a little scary that instead of spending 1.5 Canadian, you then are at 2 or 2.5, then I'm cool with it. So I say go for it. Really. Don't worry. You'll be able to do it. If you have a problem, give us a holler back. Good luck. Okay, it's Jill on Money. If you've got a financial question, want to know whether buying versus renting makes sense for you, hey, we'll help you out. In the meantime, we also have some calculators up on the website at jillonmoney.com. Just click the resources section, and you'll see links to lots of different calculators, some rent versus buy ones as well. Okay, we'll be right back.
Welcome back to Jill on Money, where Jill Schlesinger takes the mystery out of your finances.
You're back. It's Jill on Money. If you've got a financial question, we'd love to hear from you. Send us an email. Ask Jill at jillonmoney.com. Let's get through some of these emails. I try to keep up. Mark completely up my you-know-what about making sure I address all these. Okay, Carol says, I enjoy your show, your book, and your newsletters. My husband and I are nearing 60. I am retired. He'll work for at least another 5 years. I feel like we need an outside fiduciary to look at everything we have to be sure we've got enough saved and in the right places, sufficient insurance, and no glaring gaps. We use, I'm not even going to say the company, we use a big investment house for some of our investments. And they have done a plan for us. Though there is a long-term family relationship with these advisors, we recognize they are, I think she forgot a word, they are not acting as fiduciaries, because I bet they're not. How do we go about finding a fee-for-service fiduciary in our area? I've heard you mention on the podcast that you can help with this. We live in Maryland, just outside of D.C. I can help with this. So, Carol, here's the thing. The idea that someone has conducted a plan for you is fine. I like the idea of getting a second opinion because clearly you've got something that's not sitting right with you. So for everyone else listening, when you want a second opinion, a really good place to go is NAPFA, N-A-P-F-A, NAPFA.org. And at NAPFA, what's cool is you can find fee-only planners. Many of those people will conduct a plan for you on an hourly basis. They might be able to also do just a flat fee for a project, but it's a very good model because for so many of us, we don't want the sale of a big product. And so I think this is a great advent of new services that are available. Carol, we're also going to follow up with you and send you the name and contact information for someone in your area. Okay? Hey, here's another Carol who's retired, 71, 2 IRAs, one traditional, one Roth. Each has about $55,000. They're conservative and held with a big company. I also have $95,000 in an annuity. I have a pension from the state, $3,300 a month, and that takes care of most of my expenses. I've got a $33,000 Vanguard mutual fund, not a retirement account. My question, with all the talk of a recession, not if but when, would it be good for me to switch my IRAs to CDs? My financial advisor tells me I have a very conservative portfolio, 60% stocks, 40% bonds, but I do worry about losing money. I have started taking my required minimum distributions. Then she asks about whether the state of Illinois' retirement plan will be solvent. That one I can't answer. It's a shaky one for sure, but that's rough. Okay, let me go to the question. If you're 60% stocks and 40% bonds, it's not exactly like conservative. It's still sort of balanced. So if I were wanting to move anything, I might say, let me shift to at least 50-50 or maybe flip it, make it 40 stocks and 60 bonds, okay? Especially if you're very worried about losing money. And if you have this Vanguard mutual fund account already, my other question is, why not move the brokerage account into Vanguard? I mean, the IRAs into Vanguard. You have a relationship there. You can do this yourself. And I think that you don't want to have to try to pick, I don't want you to go to CDs, but you can just make your portfolio less aggressive. And the other thing I should point out is that the only money you need to tap is the money for your required minimum distributions. Maybe you just make sure you have a couple of years worth of distributions that's sitting in cash, and then you don't have to worry about the gyrations of the market. What do you think of that? That's what I would say. Okay, Lori writes, do you have any insight on a credit card matter? I received a letter from the Bank of America saying my credit card has not been used in over 2 years, so they're going to close the account. I don't really need it, but will it negatively affect my credit standing? Here's the thing. So in general, if you close your credit card account, it usually slightly impacts your credit score. I'm not sure if they do it, that it has the same impact. I'm not sure. That said, who cares? Let them close it. And if you have all the credit you need, you're not borrowing money anytime soon, the small dip in your FICO score probably isn't going to be a big problem. Okay. How much time do I have, boss? Okay, let's do this. Here's from Joy, who says, given the current environment where many fear we are about to enter a recession, is it wise to invest in either an ETF, a dividend income fund, or neither? My husband and I are retired. We live on Social Security. We've got government pensions. Okay. First of all, yes, there's going to be a recession. I don't know when. And you know what? You don't have to worry about this. What I would say is, what you should be investing in is a diversified portfolio that can see you through ups and downs. So you don't need any ETF or dividend income fund. You need to start with a plan, an asset allocation plan that you can stick to, that you can adhere to, and that you're not going to mess around with. You don't have to predict the next moves in the markets. You just don't have to do that. So let's pull back. Send me what your current allocation is if you'd like me to follow, if you want to follow up. But, if you're a 50-50 investor, you don't really need the money. When a recession comes, it'll hurt a little bit. And then when we recover, you'll get your money back. Let's not overthink this, gang. You're listening to Jill on Money. Hey, do you know we've got a podcast? It's called Jill on Money. You can get it on Apple, Stitcher, radio.com, Google Play, anywhere else you find your favorite podcast. Check it out. Just search Jill on Money. We'll be right back. You are back. It's Jill on Money. We are broadcasting live from the Capital One studios. Before we close out the hour, let's do a couple of emails. This is from Jim, who needs some help dealing with an insurance company that changes the values of a whole life insurance policy so that if I don't die before the year 2022, the policy will have no value. They want me to change it to a term policy. I've been paying premiums since 1995. Oh, my God. The proceeds from the policy are the only income for my wife. I bought the policy when I was 62. I'm now 86. Thanks for your advice. You need a second opinion. I don't know what they're doing, but I would go to a fee-only advisor to help you untangle with what they're doing. And if there is something nefarious, you go to your state insurance regulator. Insurance is actually regulated at the state level, gang. This is a terrible story. And if it really is a scam, then we want to get that, moves that through. You usually can convert a policy to a paid up whole life policy. Maybe that's what they're saying. I'm just wondering what it is that's going on. It could be perfectly legal because God knows with insurance there's so many things that are legal that seem bad. But that said, I would talk to a fee-only advisor. You can go to NAPFA, NAPFA.org. That's what you want to do. You want to find someone to help you untangle this. Okay, Gerald says, when certain mutual funds have expense ratios, how and who actually pays for it? This is easy. You do. It is essentially deducted from the performance of the fund. So he says it's not in the commission. It's not in the cost of the fund when I buy a fund. Some funds have fees that are below 1%. Others have fees over 2%. How does it impact you? It means you make less on the money that's invested, which is why we want you to pay attention to expense ratios. And we would love it if you got rid of funds that have 2% expense ratios and move into an index fund where the vast majority of index funds have expense ratios of less than 0.25%, if not even less than that. You can find those kinds of funds at Vanguard, at Schwab, at T. Rowe Price, at TD Ameritrade, at Fidelity. You want low-cost index funds. Okay, that's it for the hour. When we return, more of your questions. During the break, go to the website, JillOnMoney.com, and while you can, right now, sign up for our free weekly newsletter. Mark always picks great stuff, and we try to find the coolest stories of the week that you can get in touch with and read at your leisure. Okay, we'll be right back.
It's the weekend, and that can only mean one thing. You're listening to Jill on Money, the show that takes the mystery out of your finances. Here's your host, Jill Schlesinger.
You're back. It's hour number 2 of the Jill on Money show. How are you? We are broadcasting live from the Policy Genius studios. Policy Genius is the easy way to compare and buy insurance. Go to policygenius.com. Do you know why I love this service? Because the big complaint that I get about the insurance business in general is people are like, ugh, I just don't want to deal with that agent. Be like, as good, it would be only better if you could really buy a car online, which you can't. But it's that same feeling like, I don't want to get involved. So check out policygenius.com. Okay. Here we are. It's the second hour, which means we have a guest that's lined up. But don't forget, we always like to weave in your questions. If you have a financial concern, a question, it could be about anything. I mean, maybe it's about figuring out the best 529 plan for you and your family. Maybe it's about taxes. Maybe you're starting to worry about the year end. Anything like that? Send us an email. Ask Jill at JillOnMoney.com. That's Ask Jill at JillOnMoney.com. Often I like to pepper the show with a sprinkle, a bit of some wisdom from your workplace. We spend so much time at work, and we really want to make the most of our careers. So we had happened upon a guest who is quite excellent. His name is Ashley Goodall. He wrote a book called 9 Lies About Work. First of all, great title, right? The background that he brings to this is kind of interesting. He works for the big tech behemoth Cisco, right? So they build a lot of the hardware behind the internet. And what Ashley's job was, essentially, was to run around the world and figure out which teams and groups within Cisco were successful and try to figure out the attributes of those teams and groups and then focus on those attributes and bring it through all the other teams and groups in the organization. So here is the beginning of our interview with Ashley Goodall. So listen, you wrote this book. You walked into the studio. First thing I said is I usually hate these books, and I really like this book a lot. And one of the things that you talk about is you sort of dispel this myth about all this crap that's fed to everybody in corporate America, and you hone in on teams. Why did you start with this concept as like the key to understanding the success model for leadership and culture at companies?
Yeah, I think we're generally a little bit careless about teams. We sort of, in the corporate world or in the world outside big companies, sort of go, well, yeah, teams are sort of there and they're actually slightly annoying because they contain people who aren't us, and that's sort of frustrating because we have to learn how these people are different, and it would be easier if they were all like us. And then we sort of move on and go back to big sort of organizational systems of goal setting and planning and competency models and all of those things. But if you look at the evidence, you find out that the team experience you have at work, the experience of the people you work with every day is, for all intents and purposes, the experience of work. So we have to really, really pay attention to that. If we're curious about how to make work a better experience for all of us, a more uplifting experience, a more energizing, more productive, then we've got to start with where does work happen? And work happens on teams.
And you actually have an interesting story about this group of workers in Poland, and that there's this team, but then there's these three guys. And are we going to call them a team, or are we going to call them like a subset of the team?
Yeah, it's a sort of little sub-team, isn't it?
So talk a little bit about that experience and watching that team and what was notable about those three folks and the rest of the team.
This is me sort of traveling around the world being curious about teams, by the way, which is one of the things I love to do. And I was in Poland with a group of people from Cisco's office there. And we met in a conference room, 15 people on the team. First thing I had them do was draw a picture of their web of relationships. And the thing that came out looked nothing like a corporate org chart, by the way. It looked like a complete mess of spaghetti. And so the first thing the 15 said to me is, this is our life. Life is messy. Organizational life is complex. We treat it as though it's simple and clean and tidy. It's not. It's a big mess. This is what we have to navigate. And then later on, I said, well, show me where you work. I want to see the place where this team comes together. And it was a big, long desk with dividers between everybody's seating area. And three people on the team grabbed me and they said, okay, over here, this is where we huddle. And I said, what on earth do you mean? And it was just an unremarkable spot of industrial carpet, if you like. Mm-hmm. And they said, well, when a problem comes up during the day, the three of us are sort of working together, but we can't really see one another because of the partition. So we jump up, have a quick huddle on the piece of industrial carpet, and that's where we solve the problem. And I said, oh, is there anything else you three do together? And they said, oh, yeah, we always have lunch together.
But it's just these three, and it's not that they're not the team captains.
No.
They're just three members of this 15-person team.
15-person team, and they huddle, and they have a spot on the patio where they have lunch every day, and it's planned. I said, is that accidental? And they said, no, it's packed lunch. So you have to plan for it. You have to make the lunch and bring it in, right? Which is, I was trying to understand how deeply built into their life at work these habits are. So you've got the huddling and the lunching. None of that shows up in the way that we talk about work. We don't understand the micro relationships between people. Now then, Cisco's an awesome company. We have all sorts of great programs. We offer people development. We have great benefits. If you took away the patio or you took away the piece of industrial carpet that they're huddling on, you would materially change their experience. And if you took away one of the three people, their experience of work would be transformed.
How do they interact with the other 12 people? Are they seen as like, in other words, I could almost view that in one of two ways. This is so cool. These people are like getting together and they're making it happen. But then are the other people left out? Do the other 12 feel like, oh, look at those three off having lunch again? Or is that a particularly teenage girl kind of reaction?
That's not what I saw.
Okay.
When they drew this big map, there were sort of sub-teams within the teams, and they were doing slightly different pieces of work within the team overall. So these were just three who happened to need to be responsive to certain issues as they emerged, and they had a ritual of response. And then I guess they had a ritual of spending time together outside of the sort of rhythm of work when they were lunching. But it seemed to me to be a beautiful example of if you go look at the real world, and just let it reveal itself to you, you see things that no one else seems to have paid much attention to. And those things seem to me to be really important.
How do you use information like that and start to try to replicate what those team members are doing with tens of thousands of other employees?
Well, what it means is that the scalability of anything that you do at a corporate scale rests on teams, firstly. So the question, if you want a better company, you're actually saying, how do I get more and more great teams? That's the same thought, because you can only scale the experience of work by scaling the micro experiences of work, which means you've got to help teams thrive. So what we've done is we've understood what constitutes a great team, and we equip team leaders with tools to help them improve their teams.
We'll be back with our interview with Ashley Goodall in just a moment. If you've got a financial question, do me a favor. Send us an email. Ask Jill at JillOnMoney.com. That's Ask Jill at JillOnMoney.com. We'll be right back.
Back to Jill on Money, where Jill Schlesinger helps you take the mystery out of your finances.
You're back. It's Jill on Money. And many of you confronted with the email inbox notification of open enrollment, which is pretty much in season right now. And I'll talk more about this in the next week or two. But I think that the problem with open enrollment is that we often just sort of, do what we just did, right? It's very hard to feel like you want to go back in time and say, well, was this really the best health plan for me? But a lot of companies are starting to offer new bits of options. One of my favorite are the high deductible health plans that are paired with health savings accounts, especially for younger people. I think that those can be really awesome. I know we always focus on the younger people, hey, they're healthier, but also even older employees, because the cool thing about an HSA is that it's not a use it or lose it. You could gather up a lot of money in a health savings account and not have to pay any taxes on the money that's withdrawn as long as it's for healthcare services. And that might be quite useful to you as you approach your Medicare years, because Medicare, great program, but there's a lot of out-of-pocket costs, and certainly a lot of out-of-pocket costs for prescription drug plans. So the open enrollment period, again, I know we often will just blow it off, do what we did last year. Take a little time. Really, it makes so much sense to do that. All right. Now, let's get back to our interview. We are talking to Ashley Goodall. He's written a book called 9 Lies About Work. And one of the things that becomes apparent in his career at Cisco is, how do you have sustained great performance among employees? Well, the key may be around groups and group behavior. Here's more of our interview with Ashley Goodall. So what you call 8 precisely worded items which validly predict sustained team performance. I'm going to read them just because find them quite interesting. 1, I am really enthusiastic about the mission of my company, which is kind of a snore, and also, many companies have no mission. So let's just start there. Problem.
We should come back to that then.
I know. At work, I clearly understand what is expected of me. In my team, I am surrounded by people who share my values. 4, I have the chance to use my strengths. This is important, gang. Every day at work. 5, my teammates have my back. 6, I know I will be recognized for excellent work. 7, I have confidence in my company's future. And 8, in my work, I am always challenged to grow. These seem to me really interesting. And you say that there are 2 broad groupings of these questions. And what are those?
So the first thing to note about those are measuring somebody's experience of their team. That's what's going on there. And the experience on the team is what predicts all the outcomes that we care most about in the world of work, whether it's people staying on the team or the productivity of the team or innovation or many, many other things. The experience falls into two buckets. So the questions that you just read out, the even-numbered ones, which are about expectations, strengths, challenge to grow, recognition, those are all about, am I seen for who I am?
Right, that's an individual.
Does my team leader see me? Do my teammates see me? Not as a cog in a machine, but as a living, breathing human being. Mm-hmm. Do I know how my team is pulling on what's special in me? Mm-hmm. That's thing one, and we call that the best of me. The other group, the odd-numbered ones, which are about the one that you commented on, excitement about the mission, teammates have my back, shared sense of excellence, confidence in the future. Those are the sort of collective sense of being on a team. And so we call that the best of we. And so the secret sauce from all of the research, and this is not, by the way, we didn't just write these down. These are the questions that show up, that light up on the best teams and do not light up on mediocre teams. Mm-hmm. What we're all after is to be seen for who we are and to have that essence of us incorporated in something bigger so that we have a home defined for us by other people. We know the other people are different from us. We know that our different strengths and spikes are going to be well used, and we feel supported by the people around us. Now then, that's a marvelous experience. Globally, about 16% of people in the world have an experience where they strongly agree to all of that stuff.
16% is way more than I thought you'd get.
No, it's 16%.
All right, that's pretty good. Any geographic issues, in other words, found more in certain countries or not, or 16% across the board in global?
It varies a little bit, but more or less that's the number. It's been 16, 17% for 20 years, by the way. And the numbers haven't really moved. Of course, the other interesting work number that hasn't really moved in the last 20 years is productivity growth.
Mm-hmm. And why are we not productive? Maybe because that 16% is pretty small.
Maybe because we have a whole bunch of technologies at work and approaches at work that are descendants of the industrial system of 100 years ago, where we want to put people in boxes and tell them what to do and treat them like cogs in the machine. Mm-hmm. Maybe that's run out of gas now.
You'd like to think. I mean, as long as it's recognized that it's run out of gas and not just sort of saying, why are you not being more productive?
Well, and come back to the team in Poland. If I'd have gone into those three people and said, never mind the piece of carpet, never mind eating lunch together, never mind planning to spend time together, never mind the huddles, I'm going to give you cascaded goals and tell you what to do. I'm going to tell you what the culture of your team is. I'm going to give you the plan that you must adhere to. I'm going to measure you all against a set of competencies and tell you to go off and fill your gaps. I'm going to give you feedback against those competencies. I'm going to sort you into high potential and low potential. Firstly, it wouldn't help. But secondly, it wouldn't even see those human beings. Mm-hmm. None of this stuff sees the humans at the heart of it.
But I think that so many of these corporate initiatives that come from on high, whether it is the mission or the goals, are such like baloney, really. So many of them, you have some slogan, but it's not backed up by anything. That's, I think, the frustration of so many people in the workplace today, which is, they want to do this. They say they want this, but they don't act in a way that reflects that mission. So can we talk a little bit about this mission statement? And especially also, let's talk about the mission statement when you're working at a smaller company, which may not even have an identified mission statement.
Yeah, so I think the mission statement is probably the least important thing in making work purposeful. Mm-hmm. And yes, I think leaders of organizations are very often well-meaning and careless. And a mission statement is a well-meaning thing. Goodness me, we should write down what we're all here for. It's a good thought.
Yeah.
But then if what you do is write it down, recite it to all the employees who are already rolling their eyes because you've come up with a slide and they need you to do a bit more than that, and that's the end of the conversation, then that will just breed, I think, cynicism. Because folks are smart in organizations. They look up the whole time. They know what you're actually doing as opposed to what you're saying. People will follow your feet, not your words. So if you want to fill an organization with purpose, what you do is actually design the activities of the organization to reflect the purpose. Mm-hmm. We have some examples in the book. You think about leaders always telling stories, or you think about the marvelous Steve Jobs all-hands meetings, which everyone else in the world thought were product launches, but in fact were really an all-hands meeting where Steve Jobs is saying, we've made something else and it's beautiful again. And we were here 3 months ago and there was another beautiful thing and we've made this beautiful thing and it all works and it's a beautiful enclosed ecosystem. You could disagree with that. You could say, well, that's not the sort of thing that technology should be. You could say Apple isn't making good business decisions by keeping its ecosystem closed. But you could never say, I don't understand what this company is for. That was purpose being cascaded. You look at the Chick-fil-A franchise agreement where you're only allowed to have one store because they want to build community leaders, and so they want people who are in the stores. That's designing an organization around its purpose. So purpose isn't a statement. It's not a slide. It's an architecture. It's a set of habits, rituals. It's designed so that if you walk into a company, you can't but fail to bump into some manifestation of here's what we're all here to do.
We'll get back to our interview with Ashley Goodall in just a minute. If you've got a financial question, you can always go onto our website, JillOnMoney.com. You can listen to past shows, or maybe if you missed any part of this one, JillOnMoney.com. There you can read, you can listen, you can watch. There's a resource tab even. Don't forget, you can sign up for our free weekly newsletter as well. Okay, we'll be right back.
.401ks, IRAs, refinancing, she covers it all. Back to Jill on Money with Jill Schlesinger.
You're back. It's Jill on Money. And if you would like to learn a little bit more about the Jill on Money world, you can always go to the website, JillOnMoney.com. You also may want to subscribe to our sister podcast. It is conveniently named Jill on Money. You can get it on Apple or Stitcher, radio.com, Google Play, anywhere else you find your favorite podcasts. Okay, we want to finish up our interview with Ashley Goodall. He is the author of 9 Lies About Work. With what I think is really the most important part. When you find a good team or group in your organization, how can we actually use that as a template to make more good teams in the future? Here is the end of our interview with Ashley Goodall. How do you replicate a team experience? And now let me just talk about okay, here I am. I'm at CBS News. And so there's a radio experience, or there's an online experience, or there's a TV experience. How do I look at those team members, which have maybe different pressures? How do I replicate the team part of it across different silos of the company?
Meaning, how do I make a team over here have the same experience as a team over here?
Look more like it. Like if I find a great team, how can I translate that and bring it into other teams?
Yeah, so the first thing is attention to strengths. That's actually the master lever of any team. And strengths is, by the way, misunderstood a little bit. Some people will say, well, you we're saying pay attention to what I'm good at. And the answer is, you might be good at it, but the defining characteristic is that you're excited about it, energized by it. So the first thing is, wherever you are on a team, whether you're a team leader or a team member, pay attention to what energizes people. One of the sad things about the way we seem to be wired as humans is that we are very articulate about our weaknesses. We're very articulate about what sucks and what drains us. And if you ask somebody, typically, if you say, tell me about something that drains you, you get a rant. They don't have to think. They can go, there's this and this and this, and then this other thing, and then this other thing, and then also this and this and this. And you go, okay, great. Now, what energizes you? And they go, well, it's the people, which is the lamest answer ever. If that's the thing if that's the lifeline for you, the thread through your life, through your world, and you can come up with a word, that's not nearly good enough. So we've got to learn, each of us, and we can be helped by team leaders who understand how to do this, to be really specific about the things we are drawn to. We would do if nobody paid us to do. If you're going to do one thing right on a team, one thing, figure that out for everybody on the team. You figure it out by watching people. You figure it out by asking people, hey, you just did that and that seemed effortless for you. What was going on in your head? Explain that to me. You point your curiosity at bright sparks. That's the trick.
Now, when you came in before we started the interview on tape, I was telling you that, I don't have a team. It's just me and Mark. And you said, well, there's something unique about two-person teams. And I think a lot of people who are small business owners, they're in these teeny tiny organizations. What is unique about a smaller team? Or even if you're in a small team within a larger organization, what's unique about that?
So very often you find in a two-person, a little dyad, if you like, you find a beautiful complementary set of strengths and energies. So you find that one person really runs towards this and the other person wouldn't run to that if you poked them with a stick. And the other person is running towards something really different and the first person wouldn't run to that if you poke them with a stick. In a little dyad, if you get the mixture right and you know what the things are, again, it's all about you've got to sort of be pushing into this and super curious about it. From that comes predictability. From that comes trust. From that comes stability, if you like. And one of the really, really interesting things about the world of work is that the thing that we yearn for as human beings is predictability. And people are most predictable when they're doing what they would do anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And you can lean into that. You can rely on that. You can trust that. None of that set of ideas that work is about predictability, that we need a bit more predictability, that we're most predictable when we're playing to our strengths in the sense of energy, that energy leads to trust. None of that is talked about today. No one is pushing into these things, and I really think we need to.
I'm wondering if you see some gender differences in the workplace around these types of issues. And what I'm specifically thinking about is there are times where women will come to me and say, I don't feel like I can go do that thing, even if I'm passionate about what I'm doing here, and go over there until I master that. Like there's almost like the mastery hurdle, and then I will go take that new job. What is that, and how do you see that play out?
There was one research finding, I can't remember where it was, that said men will be promoted into a position based on someone's assessment of their potential, which, by the way, is another weird thing we talk about in the book, this whole idea of potential. But we will tend to put a man in a role because we think he'll be able to rise to the occasion. We will tend to put a woman in the role when she's proven that she can already do the job. So we go potential for men, experience for women. That was one finding. What does all of this mean? How do we redress the balance there? It's interesting because ultimately you don't know whether someone can do a new job. One of the most damaging ways that this shows up in the world of work is we make people team leaders who've been really good team members. Mm-hmm. And being a team leader is a very different job than being a team member. Completely different job. And it is a job, by the way. It's not like just being a slightly larger team member, if you like.
I'm a great salesperson, so I'll be the general sales manager, right?
Sales team. Mm-hmm. No, running a team is a completely different thing. One of the things that you find about promoting people into roles is what you're looking for is not proven experience, because you can't really ever see that if the role's a step up. What you're looking for is appetite. Appetite is the tell, because appetite is how you learn to do anything new. It's being curious about how to do it well. Mm-hmm. So I think maybe one of the things that we need to get better at is not necessarily trying to say, does this person have perfect experience? I mean, obviously some is useful.
Right.
Or does this person have whatever we think potential is, which isn't really a thing, but it's sort of, I mean, the insidious thing about potential is it allows us to justify choosing people who look like we do, because we tend to think that the high potential people are like us. So I would say leave potential alone, some experience, and hire for appetite.
Thanks so much to Ashley Goodall. The book is called 9 Lies About Work. When we return, we're going to answer your questions. If you do have a question, send us an email. Ask Jill at jillonmoney.com. We'll be right back.
Back to Jill on Money, where Jill Schlesinger helps you take the mystery out of your finances.
You're back. It's Jill on Money. I'm just typing something into this terribly old computer here. Okay, there we go. And I just want to tell you that we love hearing from you. We would love you to tell us what is on your mind. Perhaps you are in the mood to discuss the dreaded free application for federal student aid, or FAFSA form. Ugh. You know, we're going to run an interview with an author that I just met, Caitlin Zaloom. She just wrote a book called Indebted. It has changed the way I think about the way I talk to you about college funding. And we're going to talk more about that in the coming months, but the new FAFSA form available as of October 1st. So a lot of families, you know that is your first way to get into the whole college financing system, as broken as it is. So check that out. All right, now let us get on to your questions. Here is Sandra, who says, I've received many notices from my insurance, New York Life, through which I have an AARP term life insurance policy. I will be 72 in November, and I'm trying to evaluate the various information that I have received about converting the policy to a whole life insurance policy. I'm sure many other boomers have been getting this kind of information too, wondering what to do and when. I'm wondering if you could respond with a kind of term life policy conversion for dummies. Okay, let's do that. So, you know, term life insurance is really my favorite kind of life insurance, because you buy the insurance for the term, the period of time that you need coverage. So for many people, you think, oh, you know, I'm young, I'm partnered, I got kids, I haven't saved enough money. If something bad happened to me, I want to provide a pool of money so that my survivors would be all set. And the concept behind term is that once the term is up, you don't need the coverage anymore because you've saved the amount of the amount of money you have in savings is either equal or greater than whatever the term coverage is, the death benefit amount is. So why would you convert a term policy into whole life or permanent life insurance? Well, the issue would be is perhaps you need insurance for now your whole life. Now, all of a sudden if you find that, oh my God, I underestimated, we actually don't have enough savings and I do need coverage because this really is not enough money in this pot, then you could potentially convert it. However, and here's your caveat, the vast majority of people, they don't need the coverage. So the real question is, Sandra, do you even need life insurance at this point? Have you already saved enough money? I would love it if we could get you to come on the air with us and we could talk to you about what's going on in your financial life. And that would allow us to determine whether or not you actually need coverage. That's what we want to figure out. Okay? All right. Bonita writes, good morning from Texas. I originally got student loans in California, and I later requested to continue my $50 monthly payments that were late during the passing of my mother in 2012. I was told I could not continue. I needed a forbearance and deferment, which they continued to steer me now through lawsuits. Now, my meager wages are being garnished. Please help. I think that maybe you would want to go to somebody in the state of Texas to try to help you out. But I actually think that this has already happened already. So I don't know if you can I don't know if your loan was through the state of California or it's a federal loan. But once it's got converted, I'm worried that it's already been, I don't know. I don't know. What do you think, Mark? I think that maybe because it's already happened, I don't know if you can undo it. I mean, there are a lot of problems with the federal level. I don't know about the California law. So if you really want to look at it, maybe you talk to a lawyer. Maybe there's someone at work who can help you with this. But I don't know. You might be stuck. Okay. This is from John. Thank you for your article warning about lofty expectations of future stock market returns. especially when the history and especially with long-term return history and a tendency toward mean reversion. You also point out that index funds have generally lower expense ratio than actively managed funds. This is interesting in that long-term investors may argue that the lower expense ratios will reduce the risk and extent of losses. What do you think of this argument over long-term time horizons? Lower expense ratios don't reduce risk. They don't. All they do is help you earn more money. So the risk is inherent in the choice of fund, but choosing a S&P 500 index fund over, say, a managed large growth fund does not actually reduce risk. And I don't even think it reduces it really isn't about risk. It's just about returns. So it almost doesn't matter. I mean, I think that what would be best is just to reiterate that index funds are cheaper, but investing is a risky proposition. Okay, you're listening to Jill on Money. And during the break, go to the website, jillonmoney.com, and there you can buy my book, The Dumb Things Smart People Do With Their Money, 13 Ways to Right Your Financial Wrongs. We'll be right back. You're back. It's Jill on Money. And before we actually finish off the show, we're going to do one last email. How about that? This is from Patty, who says, I inherited about $84,000. It's been sitting in a savings account, earning minimal interest. I'm 75, retired, and not in financial difficulty yet. Yet in all caps. My husband has a chronic illness, Parkinson's. We do not have long-term care insurance, but we do have some good investments. What would you suggest I do with this $84,000? Well, to some extent, I wonder, I don't know how much money you have. When you say good investments, what does that mean? Does good investments mean you've got millions of dollars socked away? I think we need to know, Patty, a little bit more about what else you have before we start thinking about what to do with $84,000. Now, I would also say that in most people's cases, like when we have an illness, I do tend to recommend that you keep more cash on hand than you might normally. So to me, it makes sense for you to be a little cash heavy at this point. That said, if you're just getting minimal amounts of interest, you could certainly do a couple things. You could go to depositaccounts.com, check out where you might get better rates. Maybe if you have an investment account, you can see whether or not there is a higher yielding money market account than what you're getting in your bank. You've got some options. But let's not put any of that money to work until I understand. Maybe you could follow up with us and send us a note until I really want to understand what else you have, what else is available to you. That to me is a much, a really smart thing to do in terms of when you can start thinking about like putting money to work. Why are we doing this? What do we need? Okay. All right. If you've got a financial question, we would love to hear from you. And you don't have to wait till the program. You can do it anytime, day or night. Ask Jill at jillonmoney.com or just hop onto the website, jillonmoney.com. You can listen to past shows, any part of this one if you missed it. We've got great articles. We've got great videos from my CBS This Morning appearances, resources, and you can sign up for our free weekly newsletter. So easy. Hop onto jillonmoney.com. And we will see you next week. Thank you so much for listening.